When Ngozi closed her eyes for the final time, the village of Odu wept in silence. She had spent her life walking between the world of the living and the dead, guiding lost souls, healing broken spirits, and carrying burdens that no one else could see. Her death was peaceful, but her story was not over. After her burial beside the river she loved, the land grew still. For years, the spirits remained calm, and the people believed the balance had been restored forever. But peace is a delicate thing in a place like Odu. 17 years had passed, and now the wind no longer sang lullabies. It howled at night, carrying strange voices through the trees. In a modest home near the edge of the village lived Ezinne, a quiet girl with eyes that held too much silence. She had always felt different, though she never understood why. Lately, she had begun to wake at the same hour each night, just before the cock's first cry, her heart pounding, her skin cold. She heard voices, not loud ones, but whispers that seemed to come from the walls, the wind, the earth itself, and always they called her name. On one such night, Ezinne stood by the window, the moonlight brushing her face. Then it came again, a whisper, softer than breath. Ezinne. She turned toward the trees, and for the briefest moment, saw the outline of a woman watching her, eyes glowing faintly, like firelight. Ngozi had returned, and she had chosen her. The following morning, Ezinne awoke with a strange sensation in her chest. It wasn't pain, but a heaviness, like carrying something invisible and sacred. She had dreamt of a river, one she had never seen, but somehow recognized. In the dream, she stood on its banks, and across the water stood the woman again, her gaze steady and sorrowful. When Ezinne reached out, the river roared and swallowed her voice. As the sun rose over Odu, she moved through her day in silence. Her aunt noticed her quietness, but said nothing. In their home, emotions were swallowed like bitter herbs, endured, not examined. At the market, Ezinne passed the shrine of the ancestors and felt her heart stutter. The carved faces seemed to watch her. A soft wind brushed her neck, and goosebumps rose along her arms. She turned quickly, expecting to see someone, but the crowd moved as normal, unaware. Later that evening, as she bathed by the stream behind their compound, she noticed something on her left shoulder. A faint, circular mark, almost like a burn but painless, had appeared overnight. The skin was unbroken, but the shape was unmistakable. A swirling eye, half closed, and ancient. Ezinne rubbed at it, thinking it dirt or a trick of the light, but it remained. That night, the whispers grew louder, and when she closed her eyes, she saw Ngozi's face again. Not angry or sad, but filled with purpose. A connection had been made. The mark was a sign. The spirits had chosen her. 2 nights after the mark appeared, Ezinne was drawn from sleep by a strange sound. A song carried by the breeze, slow and mournful. She followed it, barefoot and trembling, all the way to the river where Ngozi had been buried. The moonlight shimmered on the water, casting ghostly reflections. There, standing beside the old tree that bent toward the current, was the woman. Her hair was braided in the old ways, her wrapper glowing with silver threads. Ngozi's spirit did not speak with words, but the river seemed to carry her thoughts like currents. Ezinne knelt, not knowing why, her body guided by something deeper than instinct. The river's surface broke into ripples, and from it emerged visions, faces of the dead, crying out, lost and restless. "They have returned," Ngozi's voice echoed in her heart, but not all come in peace. Ezinne felt her body grow cold as the images swirled. Villagers long dead, some gentle, some furious, their souls incomplete. Something had shifted in the spirit realm, and now they wandered again, seeking a guide. Ngozi pointed to Ezinne's chest. "You must listen, and you must choose." And then she vanished, leaving only silence and the river's gentle murmur behind. After the encounter by the river, Ezinne's days became a blur. The whispers now followed her into daylight, murmurs threading through her thoughts like old songs. She began to see more clearly. Shadows that didn't belong, faces in corners, eyes behind closed doors. But strangely, she was no longer afraid. One afternoon, she entered her aunt's storeroom to fetch yam, only to find a boy sitting on the floor. His clothes were from another time, his skin pale and his gaze empty. He didn't speak, but his eyes said enough. Ezinne blinked, and he vanished. The door had opened. At night, her dreams became journeys. She walked with spirits, listened to their stories, saw glimpses of their final moments. Some begged for help, others for forgiveness. She woke each morning exhausted, but filled with purpose. The villagers noticed the change. Ezinne no longer flinched at shadows. Her eyes glowed faintly in darkness. And once, an old woman whispered, "She walks like the one before." Ngozi's gift had not died. It had only waited. Ezinne was the bridge now, but the burden was just beginning. It was just before dusk when Ezinne saw him again, the same pale boy with hollow eyes. This time, he sat high in the old Iroko tree behind the market square, legs dangling like a child. But he wasn't a child. His eyes were too still, too ancient. Ezinne froze. The villagers passed beneath him, blind to his presence. But she could see. He pointed at her without a word, then raised his other hand to the sky. Thunder rumbled in the distance, though the clouds had not gathered. A message. Later that evening, she returned to the spot, and beneath the tree's roots, she found something strange. A buried bundle wrapped in faded cloth. Inside it, bones, broken jewelry, and a rusted knife. A forgotten murder. The boy was a spirit tied to violence, unable to speak until his bones were known. Ngozi had warned her. Some spirits return with fire in their hearts. Ezinne gathered the remains and buried them near the ancestor's shrine, whispering words she didn't know she remembered. When she rose, the boy in the tree was gone. But now, others would come. That night, Ngozi returned, not in vision, but in full. Her spirit stood at the edge of Ezinne's dream, wrapped in river light. Her face was grim. "The balance is breaking," she said. "Too many doors have opened, and some should remain closed." Ezinne listened, her soul trembling. She had believed spirits only sought peace, but now she understood. Not all who returned came for healing. Some came to destroy, to claim what they believed was stolen from them in death. "You must build a boundary," Ngozi said, "a gate between the worlds, or you will drown." In the vision, Ngozi showed her a circle of stones, drawn with ashes and palm oil, marked with symbols only the dead could read. "This will keep the evil spirits at bay, but it must be fed with memory." Ezinne awoke gasping. The dream etched into her skin. The mark on her shoulder pulsed, and when she opened her eyes, she saw the circle drawn faintly on her floor. The spirits were not waiting. They were already inside. Ezinne wasted no time. Before dawn, she gathered the items from Ngozi's dream. A gourd of oil, charcoal from her aunt's hearth, dried cassava leaves, and small stones from the river. The villagers watched her from a distance, whispering. She returned to the same spot near the shrine and drew the circle exactly as she remembered. Each symbol flowed from her hand as though guided by another. She poured oil around the stones, then lit a single flame at the center. A soft wind blew. One by one, spirits began to appear at the edge of the clearing. They stood silently, Men, women, children, waiting. None crossed the boundary. Ngozi's voice echoed in her mind. This is your sanctuary. From here, you will listen. But do not let them in, unless you are sure. The circle pulsed gently with power. Ezinne knelt within it. Her eyes closed and began to listen. Some spirits wept. Others raged. Some said nothing at all. The first to step forward was a woman with broken wrists, her face veiled in sorrow. I died with my secret, she whispered. Now I cannot rest. Ezinne nodded. Her journey had truly begun. Each spirit would bring a truth. Each truth, a weight. But the circle would hold. It wasn't long before a spirit came that did not seek peace. He arrived in the form of smoke, drifting beyond the tree line, with eyes like burning coal. He stood tall, unlike the others, proud, angry. Ezinne rose within the circle and faced him. I will not beg. The spirit hissed. I come to reclaim what was mine. Ezinne's hands trembled. The circle pulsed, reacting to the spirit's presence. He had been a powerful man in life, a chief who had stolen from the people and died during a rebellion. His death was filled with rage. I demand my offering, he growled, or I will wake the ones beneath the earth. Ezinne's heart pounded, but she remembered Ngozi's words. Do not open the gate to those who bring poison. She stood firm. You cannot enter. The spirit screamed, a sound that split the air, but the circle held. The light burned brighter, and the spirit was pushed back into the forest, consumed by his own fury. Ezinne collapsed to her knees, exhausted. The spirits were watching. They had seen her strength, but so had the darkness. Not all spirits came through the trees. Some rose from forgotten places, old wells, buried paths, ruins swallowed by vines. Ezinne first heard them at noon, when the market's noise was loudest. A chill crawled up her spine as she walked past the ancient well near the village's edge. The wind seemed to sigh from its mouth. She leaned in, drawn by a pull she couldn't name. The whisper was faint, like children crying from far below. The stone ring was cracked, its rope long rotted. Ezinne's heart beat faster. Later that evening, she returned alone. With her, she carried a small calabash, filled with river water and leaves soaked in ash. She poured it slowly into the well. The moment the water touched the stones, a voice rose. Not one, but many. Young voices. Broken. Lost. We were never found. Ezinne fell to her knees, the weight of their pain pressing down on her. She saw flashes. Children abandoned during a famine, forgotten in the chaos of flight. No one came back. Their bones lay beneath. The next morning, she returned with herbs, prayers, and 3 small clay dolls, each carved with care. She named them aloud, even though she didn't know their real names. That night, the well was silent. The children had been remembered. And for spirits, remembrance was a kind of peace. As Ezinne's work deepened, the villagers began to talk. Some feared her. Others brought gifts, kola nuts, palm oil, dried fish, hoping she would protect their households. But not everyone welcomed her gift. One evening, the village shrine cracked. It began with a strange stillness. Birds stopped singing. The air grew heavy. Then, a loud snap like thunder echoed through the village, and the large ancestral statue at the shrine split down the middle. The elders were shaken. It's a sign, they murmured. Something is wrong with the spirit world. They called Ezinne to ask what she had done. She stood before them quietly, her hands folded. The spirits are stirring, she said. Not because of me, but because something deeper has been disturbed. The oldest elder narrowed his eyes. Then you must fix it, or leave this place. That night, Ezinne cried, not from fear, but from the loneliness her path demanded. The circle of stones still glowed gently in the forest. It welcomed her like a mother's lap. Ngozi appeared again, her spirit soft with compassion. The work is not meant to be easy, but do not carry it alone. The shrine had cracked, yes, but it had revealed something buried underneath. Guided by the dream Ngozi gave her, Ezinne returned to the cracked shrine at dawn. She waited until the elders were gone, then pushed away the broken pieces of stone. Beneath the base, the earth was disturbed, loose, dark, hiding secrets. With a small hand, she dug. The ground gave way to something hard. Bones, old and dry, wrapped in torn cloth once reserved for royalty. But this was no honored burial. It was a secret grave. Ezinne's breath caught in her throat. She continued digging until she found a small brass pendant carved with the emblem of a forgotten chief. Ngozi's voice came again, soft as breath. This shrine was built to silence a truth. Ezinne understood. The ancestors had been called upon to bless a place that stood atop betrayal. The shrine had cracked not out of anger, but because it could no longer bear the lie. She cleansed the bones with water and herbs, then reburied them beside the river, where truth had always flowed freely. She offered kola and broke a piece of yam beside the grave, whispering, "You are remembered." That night the air shifted again, softer. The cracked shrine stopped weeping, and the village, though unaware, slept deeper. That night the dreams returned, this time not with voices, but with flame. Ezinne stood in a vast plain, the skies red and smoky. From the distance she saw a figure cloaked in black fire. It moved slowly toward her, dragging chains behind it. Around it, spirits wailed, tethered like dogs. The figure spoke, without lips. "You free them. I bind them. You are the undoing of my hunger." Ezinne woke with sweat pouring down her face. Her room felt colder than usual, the air heavy. She ran to a circle in the woods and found something terrifying. The stones had been scattered. Something had entered. Ngozi's voice came again, urgent. "He has come, the one who feeds on sorrow. You must prepare." Ezinne rebuilt the circle quickly, her hands shaking. She added cassava bark, chicken feathers, and red chalk. This time, she didn't just draw symbols. She carved them into the earth with a blade. As dawn broke, the air grew still again. The spirits did not come that morning. They were hiding. Even the dead were afraid. The village of Odu had seen many things. Plague, famine, even war. But never had it felt like this. An unseen weight pressed down on the land. The birds no longer sang before sunrise, and the wind stopped knocking gently on doors. Even the children, usually wild with laughter, now played in silence, glancing over their shoulders. Ezinne felt it too. The spirits had grown quiet, but it wasn't peace. It was fear. Those who once came to her for help no longer crossed the boundary of her circle. They lingered at the edges, like animals sensing a predator. Ngozi's whispers guided her still, but they were distant now, strained, as if traveling from far beyond the veil. "He has crossed over," the spirit murmured one night. "He who feeds on the forgotten." Ezinne had read about him in the old texts, hidden behind the shrine's altar. A name buried in dust. Okpulu Mo, the spirit eater. A creature that devoured wandering souls, growing stronger with each forgotten death. He had slipped through the cracks. Now he walked among them. The first to vanish was an old man named Dyke, a palm wine tapper who lived at the edge of the forest. He had once asked Ezinne to speak to his dead wife. Now he was gone. No body, no trace. Only his walking stick remained. lying beside his half-filled calabash. Then a child disappeared. Then another. The village entered panic. Whispers turned into blame. "She brought this," they said. "This girl who sees the dead has opened the gate too wide." Ezinne bore their accusations in silence, her shoulders heavy but unbent. She returned each night to her circle, seeking answers. The spirits did not speak, but she felt their warning in the silence. Okpulu Mamo was taking them, swallowing spirits before they could find her. Those who died without being remembered were dragged into his belly, their stories erased, their souls lost. She began to place memory tokens around the village, curries, carvings, herbs, and names written in charcoal. It was all she could do, but it wouldn't be enough. One cold evening, as Ezinne wept beside her circle, the wind shifted. A faint perfume filled the air. Smoke, palm oil, and something older. The fire flickered, and from it rose a familiar figure, Ngozi. But she was not as before. Her face was firm now, and her form clearer, more spirit than shadow. "He is not like the others," she said. "Okpulu Mamo cannot be reasoned with. He does not speak. He devours." Ezinne looked up, broken. "What can I do?" Ngozi knelt beside her, though her body no longer touched the earth. "You must bind him with memory. He feeds on the forgotten. So remember, speak their names, call their truths, tell their stories aloud, and he will weaken." "But what of the lost?" Ezinne asked. Ngozi touched her shoulder. "Nothing is truly lost if it is remembered." Then she was gone again, her presence replaced by the silence of night. Ezinne stood, wiped her tears, and began to write. She would remember every spirit she had ever seen. She would speak their names into the wind. By the river where Ngozi had been buried, Ezinne stood beneath the moonlight, a crowd of villagers behind her. She had called them all, young and old, asking only one thing: bring a name, bring a memory. Together, they gathered beside the flowing water, each person holding a stone. One by one, they spoke names aloud, of lost fathers, forgotten mothers, children buried too young, strangers who once passed through Odu. The air trembled with their voices. The spirits returned, dozens of them, hovering silently among the trees. Then the air turned cold. Okpulu Mamo appeared on the opposite bank, tall, skeletal, wrapped in smoke. His mouth opened to devour the sound, but this time, the voices were stronger. "Chinyere!" one man shouted. "Ifeanyi!" Another cried, "Mama Nkechi!" With each name spoken, the spirit eater recoiled, his form shrinking. The spirits glowed brighter. The river roared. Ezinne raised her hand. "You cannot take what we remember." And with the final name, Ngozi, the spirit eater screamed and collapsed into dust. The wind blew hard, then fell still. Peace returned to Odu. The sun rose gently over Odu, casting soft gold over the village rooftops. The air felt different, lighter, like a burden had finally lifted. Birds returned to their branches. Laughter began to creep back into the market stalls. The people, once afraid, now looked to Ezinne with awe, not suspicion. The spirits too had changed. Where once they came weeping or whispering in pain, now they arrived calmly, some only to smile and fade, others to offer silent thanks. Ezinne watched them come and go from her circle, a silent procession of peace. That night, Ngozi came once more, her figure soft and glowing. "You have done what I could not," she said gently. "You remembered them all." Ezinne's eyes filled with tears. "But I'm tired, Mama. The stories, they never stop." Ngozi nodded. "That is the gift and the price. You carry memory, but you do not carry it alone. Teach the people to remember. Share the gift. Let others carry it with you." And with that, Ngozi faded into the stars. finally at rest, her spirit full of peace. Ezinne began to write, not in secret notebooks, but on walls, on cloth, on the air itself. She spoke the names of the dead, not as burdens, but as stories. She invited children to sit with her in the evenings and told them tales of those who came before. The midwives, the hunters, the traders, the singers. She carved symbols into wood and gave them to the elders, telling them which belonged to whom. The village began to understand. Memory was not sorrow. It was strength. The old shrine was rebuilt, not to worship, but to remember. Each stone held a story. Each offering was a tribute. The people stopped fearing the dead. They began to speak to them with reverence, not fear. Ezinne, once the silent girl by the river, now stood tall beneath the Iroko tree. She was no longer just a vessel of whispers. She was a voice, and the spirits listened. Years passed. The story of Okpulu Mamor became legend, told during Harmattan nights by fireside. Children learned the names of their ancestors. Families built small altars, not to beg, but to remember. No one in Odu died forgotten again. Ezinne's circle remained, still pulsing faintly at the forest's edge. But now, others tended it with her, young ones who had begun to hear whispers too. She taught them not to fear, but to listen. The spirits still came, of course, some heavy with grief, others simply curious. But Odu no longer trembled at their presence. It welcomed them. Even the land seemed to breathe better. Crops grew fuller. Rain came when it was needed. Peace wasn't just in the spirit world. It had rooted itself into the soil, and at the river's bend, where Ngozi had once been laid to rest, the waters flowed clear. Flowers bloomed without planting. Children played there without fear. The balance had been restored, not by power, but by memory. One day, as Ezinne sat beneath the shade of the great tree, a little girl approached her. She couldn't have been older than 7. She held a leaf in her hand, shaped like an eye. "I saw her," the girl whispered. "The glowing woman. She smiled at me." Ezinne's heart paused. She reached out and touched the girl's head gently. "You have the gift, child, and one day, you'll carry the stories." The girl smiled and sat beside her. Together, they watched the wind move through the trees, carrying with it the voices of those who had come before. Ngozi's spirit had returned not to haunt, but to guide. And now the line would continue, generation after generation, voice after voice. In Odu, no one would ever be forgotten again. The stories lived, and so did she. We hope you enjoyed today's story. Give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. That's all for today. Take care, folks.